You're locked into Inception Radio Network, Superior, Wisconsin.
You're tuned in to Night Vision Radio, exposing the truth one secret at a time. Prepare yourself as we explore the shadow worlds of suppressed history, secret knowledge, forbidden religion, and shine a light on the conspiracies to keep it all from us. Welcome to Night Vision Radio. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Night Vision Radio. Missed you guys last week. Had an actual Thursday off for Thanksgiving, and I hope you guys here in America who were celebrating Thanksgiving had a wonderful day that day. It was kind of nice being off, but it did kind of throw me off my whole thing. I didn't know what to do with myself that night. But anyhow, I want to thank you for joining us again. Also, we're going to be discussing tonight some of the information that we had on with our last guest, the inimitable Henry Lincoln, who was on the week before Thanksgiving. We're going to be delving into the Rennes Chateau mystery with my guest tonight. Actually, she's not even really a guest anymore. She's more of a recurring feature on Night Vision Radio. She's my really, really good friend, author and intuitive, Gloria Amendola. Hey, Gloria.
Hey, René. How are you?
I'm fine. You know, I keep getting messages from people saying, when are you going to have Gloria back on? We love hearing you guys, gab together. And I said, yeah, it's kind of like people are just eavesdropping on our many protracted telephone conversations. This is the stuff that we talk about all the time, and we may as well share it with other people, especially when there's so many interesting things going on. Now, tonight we do want to get into the Rennes Chateau mystery as a follow-up to Henry Lincoln. We'll give some update on information that Henry put out there about his new book, that sort of thing. We're also going to be talking about Gloria's brand new book, which has just been released. It's her third channeled work on Mary Magdalene, and it's available on Gloria's website, gloriaamendola.com, and also on gravedistractions.com, and that's our good friends Brian and Laura Kennard at Grave Distractions Publications. So, and I think you can also get it through Amazon, but I think it's a little bit better for the authors if you buy them directly from them or from Grave Distractions. Is that right, Gloria? Am I talking out of turn?
Yeah, I don't sell them on my website, but it's definitely best if people go through Grave Distractions. A lot of people go through Amazon, but Brian makes it pretty easy to purchase the books through his site.
He really does, and then while you're on there, you can peruse all the other great books that he has there. You'll recognize some of the people from our past guests that are his authors. So I think we're going to be having the Reverend Michael Carter on one of these days again pretty soon. He's got a new book out and new information about his ET experiences and his take and how he reconciles that with being a Christian minister. So we're going to be having him on pretty soon. The other thing that we're going to get into tonight a little bit, among probably other things, whatever spurs us on, are the current economic conditions. Everywhere I turn, and I was telling Gloria this, and other friends I've been chatting with, like I live in Los Angeles. I've worked in the television and film industry for a number of years, more than I'd like to admit to. And I see a lot of people that are, good friends, and others that are just really fine television producers and others who are having the worst time financially. It seems like everything has sort of turned upside down for most people. And we're going to be talking about that, what's going on, and how, this whole problem has contributed to all the social unrest that we're seeing, all the protests. I believe it does have its roots into our economic situation. As I was saying, this how the economic situation is contributing to all the social unrest. Not going to get into too much of certainly my personal opinion about each of these cases that's going on that's causing the protests, but just the fact that it is having an effect on all of us. I mean, I know everybody has their own opinion about the individual cases, but I think it's just indicative of what's going on. Anyhow, Gloria, thanks so much for coming back on and for joining us back again after we got a little bit of an interruption there.
That's okay. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, a couple weeks ago we had Henry Lincoln on, and it's always so wonderful to have him on. First thing is, he's kind enough to get up at 4:30 in the morning and do the show just about every single time that he's asked. And
I know.
that's very much appreciated. In that show, we talked about, a bit of the Rennes Chateau mystery. We also talked about the fact that he is editing and publishing Holy Blood, Holy Grail in a way that's going to make it so much easier to read. Anybody that's ever picked that book up and tried to read it, it's very, very difficult. So, but it's full of amazing information, and it certainly caused a stir in society back when it was first released. And of course, it went back on the bestseller list after the Da Vinci Code came out, and people found out that it was Da Vinci Code was based largely on the ideas that were discussed in Holy Blood, Holy Grail. So that book's going to be coming out pretty soon. We'll keep you updated on how that's all going to work. And I think Henry's also going to re-release The Holy Place and Key to the Sacred Pattern, which will be really, really great. And I think those will be published in the United States as well. So that'll be really nice. Anyhow, Gloria, so further to the ideas about Rennes Chateau, I mean, we've kind of familiarized people with the Beringer Saunier story about the priest who found something, became fabulously wealthy, and so much speculation has been going on ever since about what that might have been and about what that mystery was all about. But the sort of more time or the more years that pass in my involvement in this story, in a way, it almost seems like those things are all very interesting, but not really what's important, but except that they do put a signpost up for us to say, look over here, there's something going on here. What is it? Do you agree with that?
I do. When I was there in September, I went deeper into the landscape temple, which Henry talks about, of course, in The Holy Place, and even Key to the Sacred Pattern. And, you and I have spent time with Henry driving through the landscape and looking at these certain nodal points, these certain points of interest that have been pointed out in different ways in different layers of the mystery. But where it takes me always, because I'm interested in the goddess teachings, I'm interested in the wisdom teachings that bring us into the power of earth energies, of landscape temples, that really moves me. And I think that's where the biggest mystery in Rennes Chateau exists.
Exactly. And I mean, do you kind of agree that these other stories, while they're really interesting, and maybe there is something to them, but they're sort of just the surface stories, and they kind of just serve to get us all looking in that direction. And once you start to look, you start to really see that there's so much more going on there. And
well, I agree. And when you mentioned my new book at the top of the show, one of the things, I couldn't finish the book. I tried to finish the book before I went to France, and I couldn't do it. And that's always an indication that there's something on the horizon for me to learn, to see, to understand, to comprehend, so that when I'm channeling and the sensations are coming through in the information, I can actually, in some way that this channeling phenomenon works, my brain can actually recognize it. And I think this time going there and then channeling the last pieces of the book when I got home helped me to understand even more deeply what the magic of the earth is there. And a lot of that is in the third volume of Mary Magdalene Revelations. As I've told you, when I was sitting at in Dr. Paul Caron's garden in Rennes-les-Bains, I saw Mary Magdalene appeared as if a hologram, and she began to show me an ancient healing technique that was done down by the water there in the river. And she was saying how it was very much an Essene practice, and that is... and it very much involved not only the earth energy there, but the magic of the water there.
Can you give any more information in what it was that she was instructing you to do?
Well, it was as if she had come alive again, as she does, and in this holographic imprint that the seeing was coming through my third eye, that sort of thing. It was an ancient healing technique which she called the true baptism. I don't want to say much more than that because it's in the book and it's really worth reading, but she reveals a step-by-step process about how this technique was achieved and how the elements of the Rennes-les-Bains area, which is in the Rennes-le-Château area, how they utilized them to awaken people, to awaken their genetic code. It was really fascinating, and it involved the salt, it involved the water, it involved the earth energy, and it involved the land.
And of course, Rennes-les-Bains is in the general environ of Rennes-le-Château, just sort of down the hill, and it is known obviously for its waters because the name Rennes-les-Bains actually means baths of the queens, and this has been what's called a spa town for centuries. And in fact, there are still operational Roman baths in the village of Rennes-les-Bains. And then you can also, of course, just walk down into the river on your own without having to go through the building. But the building is still there. It's the Roman baths, and it's still operational, and people still come to that area for its healing waters. And they're not just in Rennes-les-Bains. They're also in that same general area. There are certain springs in the Ariège and in around that area that people journey to for specific health problems. Yeah. And, if you've got, a heart problem, you might go to this spring. If you've got a kidney problem, you might go to another spring. But there's definitely something going on there. Now,
I don't know if I told you, Renee, when I was there sitting in Dr. Paul Caron's garden, I had never really noticed, I noticed the little bridge before it, and I've sat there many times, but it was weird because I never, in all my visits, never really realized it was called, a garden of, Dr. Paul Caron. And for those of you that are becoming interested in the Rennes-le-Château mystery or know about it, he was a really enigmatic character. He was a physician. He was an author. He was a very interesting guy. And it is believed that Saunière, in his last days, was not only visited upon by Dr. Caron. Of course, he would have known him because Caron was good friends with Boudet, Father Boudet of Rennes-les-Bains. But some people actually believe that Saunière gave Caron the mysterious parchments that are associated with the Rennes-le-Château Enigma.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, and I've actually read, and I can't say this with 100% accuracy because it's been a while since I've really touched on deeper details in Karan's life, but I do believe that I have read that later on, subsequent to Sonier's passing, that the Karan was seen in certain locations that Sonier had frequented, and perhaps that's why people believe that Sonier passed the parchments on to him. But he was this really quiet, behind-the-scenes character. And I actually channeled him in this, in the third volume of Mary Magdalene Revelations. He came through. He didn't have a lot to say. It was mostly Magdalene, but he did have a few interesting tidbits, as well as Father Boudet. But, again, Karan is a very interesting character in this mystery, very quiet. And yet I have a feeling he's much more important than we may have realized.
Now, his house is right there on that main road that goes right through the village, correct?
I don't know. I don't know where his house is. All I know is they named the garden after him. As you're walking past Maison Christina and you have the bridge that, you
Yes.
look left and you have the bridge. Just past it is his garden. And you walk down about 10 steps and there's a lot of crushed stone and a couple of benches and some trees, and you can sit by the river. You're you're elevated above the river, but you can sit there and look over that vista, from that particular perspective, and it's just a beautiful spot. But he's an interesting, character.
Now, if I'm not mistaken, his house is across the road, but
it might be, but I
could be wrong. I could be wrong about that. I'm going to check on that with Henry. But anyhow, so these are things that happened on your last trip, and things that you observed, and messages that you got. How do you plan to apply that? Are you in the future into what you're doing here? Is there an application for what is going on here, wherever we happen to be?
Is there an application to the true baptism or to channeling Courant and that sort of thing in the mystery?
To what you're able, to what we found in the area with the water, the currents, the whatever that energy is. Not everyone can get to France. I'm dying to get back. I can't get to France right now. But what is it that we can do wherever we're sitting that relates to that same energy?
Okay, got it. One of the most important things we can do is take stock of the water that we're drinking. In other words, the thing about the water in Rennes-les-Bains as a location on the earth, there are others where the water has a tremendous amount of life force, of coherency, of intelligence, if you will. It's very structured. It's my belief, and I write about this, that this has Ormus. There's a lot of things we can do where we find ourselves right now. We could be drinking a higher quality life force. We can actually introduce spring water into our daily routine, and you can use the website findaspring.com and find free-flowing springs all over the United States. It's an excellent resource. And as far as Ormus, as far as ocean plasma, our friends at Dancing with Water have some great products that you can infuse the water with and work with the salt solutions, and work with sea plasma, and work with Ormus to begin to understand how adding those elements into a glass of water a day can begin to do many things, from help you feel better physically to help you have more inner sight, more vision. Expanded states of consciousness. These products are there. Again, Dancing with Water is a great resource. There are others, and they, you can get this stuff, and you can begin to work with that and see what it really does for you in terms of your abilities of perception.
That's interesting. So these are things that you can do wherever you are. I did not know about findaspring.com. I'm definitely going to look into that for myself.
Yeah, and all across the country. And a lot of times when I'm traveling now, I make sure that I have bottles in my car so that if I find myself in New Hampshire doing a Magdalene Circle, or Maine or Massachusetts, I'll be up in the Salem area of Massachusetts this weekend. I like to know what the water source is locally, because lots of times I stop and I fill maybe 4 gallons full of water and I bring it home. And when you collect water from spring, well, first of all, it's free. And for them to be on Find a Spring website, those springs have to be tested. So we need to, we know what the mineral components are in there. And you have a profile of these springs, which is really cool. You know what's in it. And it's about it's much more than just drinking clean water. It's about the life force that comes out of the earth. And it's free.
That's amazing. Now, I know you travel some distance to get your water near your location there. I mean, how far do you actually drive to get your water?
Well, I've sampled now about 5 different springs in Connecticut, New Hampshire, and New York. And when I get my water, what I consider locally, which is in Connecticut, I go an hour each way, and I collect enough water, especially at this time of year, for a couple of months. And I keep it in my basement. It's cold this time of year, and it stays pretty good. And I just am always drinking it.
Now, what about the idea of keeping it for a long time? Is there any problem with that?
I've been doing it for about 3.5 years now, and I've never had a problem. I think I had 1 gallon in 3.5 years that I collected in the summer, and I didn't drink it because I didn't like the smell to it. And that's the only time ever. It doesn't seem to be. Of course, my basement is cool to cold. Now this time of year it will get cold, much cold, cooler. Yeah. It seems to be fine. And
so, I know it isn't going to go bad or anything like that, but do you think it might lose its potency or something like that over time? Is it best to use it up and then, keep replenishing your supply?
Well, that's really what I do. But you can always restructure water by you can buy some pretty cheap devices on the market where you run your water through a device. I have one, it cost me like $35, and you screw it onto bottles and you run it through that device, and it has magnets, and it's in a, kind of a 6-pointed star formation in the inside, and that just completely restructures the water. You can actually take a glass bottle, and you want to put your water in glass, and you can actually spin it counterclockwise just by shaking your bottle around, and that completely restructures it and reorganizes it if it has had any breakdown. But what you need to understand with water is when you draw it out of the earth, the sound, the inner chambers of the earth, it's absolute perfection the way it comes out. Whereas when you have water delivered in a municipal system, like turning on your tap and getting a glass of water, the water goes through so many twists and turns that are unnatural that it actually breaks down the memory in water. So by the time you drink water out of your faucet, most times it's dead water. It may be clean enough and safe enough for us to drink, but it's dead water. And so when you're drawing water out of the earth, you're drawing live water that has come through a natural system in the earth that knows exactly how to purify based on minerals and salts and soils and sound.
Sound.
Yeah.
Very cool. Very cool. So now, hopefully we'll be heading back that way over to France next year. And if anybody's interested in exploring this amazing place, get hold of Gloria or get hold of me, and we will definitely keep you apprised of any trips that are upcoming. The other thing that's really cool, and I just want to touch on this really quickly because we're going to have to go to break in about 3 minutes. But, Henry may be coming to the United States, Henry Lincoln. We're planning some events with Henry and Gloria for early spring of next year. And we'll keep you posted on all that too. So we'll put it on Facebook, on Gloria's website, on my new website that I'm building right now, renebarnett.com. It's not up yet, but it will be shortly. And also on a lot of other places on the internet, you'll be able to find out what we've got going on in terms of going back to France or the UK. There's some interesting springs and wells in the UK as well that we've been to, Gloria, that are also very interesting, particularly in Glastonbury.
You know, Renee, I don't know if I mentioned this on the show before. I think I told you when I got back from France about, speaking of water and speaking of Henry Lincoln, when I was with Henry in September, I don't know if I told you this. I don't know if I was mentioning to him remember that dream I had about the Tour Magdala in Rennes-le-Chateau?
With the water?
And about the water and how the water was under there?
Mm-hmm.
And how in the dream I was with people in the village, and everybody was kind of wandering around, and they were getting very giddy and very silly, and the water was running everywhere. But in reality, if you're walking in the village, you don't see that water. You'll see it more in Rennes-les-Bains. But I remember going to like this more underground level where the Tour Magdala is, and there was this area. And in my dream, there was a guardian. There was a woman and her daughter, and they were guarding this jacuzzi-like, interesting, spiraling vortex motion of water there. And I wondered if anybody wanted to go in it. And it was clearly very special water. And I think I was telling Henry the dream, and he said, "Well, there is water under there." Did I tell you that?
You did tell me that, in which, of course, we had never known that before. So
no, never knew it before. And there's a
interesting
picture on my website. If you go on the images tab, there's a picture of Henry sitting down. I posted it on Facebook, too, a while back, where he's drawing out where the water was. So that whole thing that he's drawing with the Tour Magdala and the Orangerie and, Saunier's domain there, he's showing me and telling me where the water collected under the Tour Magdala.
Wow. Well, we'll have more when we come back from this break with author and intuitive Gloria Amendola. If you'll just hang in there with us, we'll be right back.
Hello, everyone. Lorian Fenton here, host of the California MUFON radio show, asking if you'd like special access to exclusive and amazing information about UFOs, the paranormal, and all things unexplained. If you're nodding yes, then join IRN's Insider Club. As an Insider Club member, you'll get an all-access pass to premier Inception Radio Network content for only $4.99 a month. This includes live UFO and paranormal conferences, live streaming UFO skywatches, exclusive IRN radio and TV productions, and of course, paying radio with MJ and Ken Storch. So don't wait any longer. Visit InceptionRadioNetwork.com and click on Member Login to join IRN's Insider Club and get your VIP access today.
Do you have a smartphone? If so, Inception Radio Network is the best app for you. Available on iTunes, Android, Samsung, and most other app stores. Just search Inception Radio Network. With the app you can listen live, check out podcasts of recent and past shows, view our videos, see what shows are coming up, who the guests are, and, via the chat room, send live questions to those guests. You know it makes sense. Check your app store now. Inception Radio Network. I'll see you there.
Hey, IRN listeners, make sure you tune in to NightVision Radio with René Barnett. René will be exposing the truth, one secret at a time. When? Thursdays. Every Thursday, 10:30 p.m. Eastern, 7:30 p.m. Pacific. Where? Right here on IRN.
Hi, I'm John Payne. vocalist for the band Asia FJP, and creator of Las Vegas's Raiding the Rock Vault. You know, music provides the very soundtracks of our lives and has the power to impassion and inspire us like nothing else. My friends at returnofthetroubadour.com understand that as well, and that's why they're sponsoring a contest in search of a very special song, a song that uplifts the heart and inspires the soul. I'm very pleased to be sitting on the panel of distinguished contest judges. And by the way, prizes are quite nice too. So if you're a songwriter, don't delay. Go to returnofthetroubadour.com for all the contest details and deadlines, and send us your song. It could just be that special one. That's returnofthetroubadour.com, where they know music can change the world.
You're locked into Inception Radio Network, Superior, Wisconsin.
Welcome back to Night Vision Radio. I'm your host, René Barnett. Our guest tonight, author and intuitive Gloria Amendola. And you just heard our good friend John Payne, amazing musician, talking about the songwriting contest for returnofthetroubadour.com. I just wanted to add that the deadline for submitting a song is still about a week and a half away. It's on December the 15th. So if you'd like to join that contest, go ahead and submit your songs right away. Just go to returnofthetroubadour.com. You can also like their Facebook page, but you still have time to enter, and the prizes are really nice. I know the grand prize is like $5,000 in gold coins. So that would be a nice little Christmas gift for anyone. So good luck with your song. I hope you win. And I'm sure a great song is going to come out of this contest. I'm anxious to see. Anyhow, back to the show and back to Rennes Chateau. You know, part of the whole, I mean, every time I see an advertisement for that movie, As Above, So Below, I always think about, of course, the area of Rennes Chateau in France, and that phrase keeps coming up over and over and over again. And it seems to me, and I assume a lot of people, that it has something to do with what is in the heavens reflected in the earth. And what can you tell us about that?
Well, you know, when Henry had his laptop with him and he opened his presentation that he does, it was titled As Above, So Below, which is the Hermetic principle for your listeners who may not know. What is above is below, what is within is without. And the interesting thing about that is that while that celestial imprint is clear, and Henry made it clear by his book, The Holy Place, and I think he's further refining some of what he feels about that, or perhaps, and what's always been of interest to me, is what effect that has. So, okay, we can say that the stars are imprinted on the earth there, but what's the point? Why? Well, you know, there has to be a reason. It's just not because. And at least that's always been my thinking. And as I've walked there and I do different ceremony along the way at these specific points of measurement, it's to see what kind of effect it has on the human body. And in the volume 3 of MM Revelations, she gets into, Magdala, that is, in my channeling, she offers a lot of information on what that starlight is actually doing to the earth and to us, and what kind of interaction we're experiencing on a daily basis that we're not even aware of.
You're saying it has something to do with the actual light of the stars?
Yes. Yeah, and light, frequency, perhaps some sort of celestial sound that we can't even hear, but it's very organic. It's very alive. It's not like, ooh, there's a star in the sky way up in the distance, because as we know, there are some components of the human body that have that stardust within it. So if you boil all that down, the thinking is we, in some form, in some way, came from the stars. That material, that prima material, is as above, so below, as within, so without. And I've always been intrigued by that, because I'm in my world, I'm saying it's not an arbitrary connection. Everything, I operate from the perception that everything is connected, more so than we can ever imagine. And in that web of life that I was clearly shown this time in France, the light, and specifically the light from the stars, was a very important component.
And are you saying that it has an effect on us, our bodies, our minds, or
Yes. Yes, exactly. It has an effect. Just like if we walk, I've talked about earthing before, and if you walk on the earth barefoot, we know, and there have been a good amount of peer-reviewed studies at this point that show that the earth is giving off free electrons. And if we connect with it barefoot, like we'll do in the summer, like we'll do at the beach, those sorts of things, maybe, walking in a nice a field of grass, whatever it is, we're actually getting a medicinal benefit of the free electrons that exhibit. Now, these electrons exhibit intelligence. They know how to go into the body, just where to go, and to provide relief from, get this, inflammation. Inflammation is the underpinning of most of the chronic and crazy, out-of-control diseases and conditions that we have going on right now. So we can't see those free electrons, and yet the earth is emanating them, is giving them off all the time. So we know that, and that has been peer-reviewed, studied, and there are people that are receiving tremendous benefits from reducing inflammation, from joint pain disappearing, phenomenal information. So my point is, and that's www.earthing.com, EARTHING. Go on their website, check out their products, or just take your shoes off and get your feet in the in the soil, in the earth, in the sand, in the water, and it will literally heal you. But my point is, we can't see those free electrons. What Magdala is saying in the channeling, and it's not just in this volume, but she goes into pretty big detail, that it is the starlight that is that interactive as well.
The starlight.
The starlight, the star, the light from the stars, the starlight, talks a little bit about the light from the moon, but how much we are connected to it, and it is affecting us all the time.
Does that mean we should go outside at night in the starlight, or?
Yeah, that we should really be interacting with our earth in a very real way and with the heavens, rather than being locked up in our houses, completely removed from the earth, which is really kind of where we belong.
And, I mean, is starlight coming at us during the daytime, too? Obviously, we have the sunlight.
Well, she talks about the sunlight, too. And so I think maybe it was just for my brain that she was referring to the sunlight during the day, the starlight at night, although I imagine the idea of time in the bigger scheme of things probably doesn't even play in as much as I think it does. My brain is saying linear time, but I'm sure there's more to it than that. But we are being affected by this all the time.
Oh, I see. And so I guess you would be better off, or certainly you would get more of the effect if you were outdoors. What about someone that, if you never went outdoors, say you were in the hospital or in prison or something like that, would you still get effects from the light?
Well, I imagine in some way, but not in a really, I imagine by osmosis you're going to get some, and I wouldn't say that I definitively know all these pieces. I continue to seek them out, but as I've channeled them, it seems to me that it's the direct plug-in. It's like when your feet are on the ground and you're barefoot and you're plugged into the earth and all those free electrons and your hands are up to the sky and you're looking up, whether it's the sun, whether it's the stars, that what they're saying is we're receiving not only real medicinal benefit from that, but we're actually receiving codes that enter into our bloodstream and begin to activate our genetics more fully. Yeah, it's complex stuff, and I've brought it through as clearly as I possibly can. Perhaps in the future there'll be more clarification that will make sense, or the information will get stepped down a little bit more clearly. But the gist of it is there, and I think it's fascinating. I think it's well worth the read because it gives more insight than I've read in all my research.
Now, you talked a minute ago about, you said that we know that, there is some sort of a stardust component to our physical makeup. And so, meaning that, of course, maybe we are, had our origins at some point from elsewhere. To me, that sounds very much like it supports the theory of panspermia, that all life on Earth was created by meteorites and asteroids, hitting the Earth and sort of planting the seeds, I guess, of life on the Earth. I mean, that's something that came out a few years ago, and it seems to be gaining in more support. Do you think that could be a component of what you're talking about?
I absolutely do, because I think when we look at, if we look at Jesus or Osiris as the dying and resurrecting solar god, we tend to equate the sun with masculinity. And so therefore the sun is the logos, the sun, the S-U-N, the S-O-N, the dying and resurrecting sun god, S-U-N god, S-O-N god, right? We look at that. We can always bring back these stories to the elements of the cosmos and the earth. And so if you look at the stars or the sun, let's just keep it simple and say with the sun, people will feel that's very masculine, and actually the seed goes forth, right? Very masculine, the seed goes forth, panspermia, and it shoots out, and it's when it's received by the earth, that is the womb, that is very feminine. And it's that union of heaven and earth, or masculine, feminine, whatever we want to call it, but it is that union of the two that create life on earth.
Yeah, I mean, it does sort of make sense. I know when I first heard of that theory, the panspermia idea, it did make a lot of sense. And it also made a lot of sense why, people like you and I have been so fascinated by meteorites. I mean, not just you and I, but, entire cultures, Native American cultures, ancient cultures. There seems to be some knowledge that there was something really important going on besides just some rocks, hitting the surface of the earth.
Well, you have the enigmatic lapis axilla stone. I was gifted one little one in the Ariège region when I was over there in September. And, basically, I think at their core, they're considered some form of meteorite. But if you get into the artwork of Nicholas Roerich and the Chintamani stone or the lapis axilis or whatever this glowing light was, it appears to have been at its core, in my opinion, a special form of meteorite.
Mm. Well, and we've talked before about how many sacred sites or sacred structures are built on top of these kind of stones, these meteorites. The Dome of the Rock, of course, in Jerusalem, the Kaaba stone in Mecca. There are Egyptian temples that are built on top of, some kind of huge black stone. It seems to me very much like a meteorite. We hear about the work of Isis, her alchemical work, using a black stone. We talked about, oh my God, I mean, it goes on and on and on. I think that, the ancients had some idea about these things, and also some indigenous cultures. I know that, the highest gift in many Native American cultures that you can give to someone is a piece of meteorite.
Yeah. Well, I believe that the indigenous people and the ancient people were so much more connected to the earth. They were walking, barefoot. They were plugged in, and they were always observing the movement of the heavens. They really didn't see it as a separate, it wasn't really that separate to them, especially in the indigenous traditions. They always seem to understand the I don't know if every tribe, but I know certain tribes that I've, read of, creation myths and credos and beliefs. They believe in the interconnectedness of everything. They believe in this web of life. And Mary Magdalene channeled a lot about that web and how they used it and pulled from it. Very fascinating information, how they would focus and observe. And, certain quantum physics or, some of what they're finding really supports that, which is really, really interesting. So for them, there was no separation. For us, we are living very much in separateness, and we're inside in our houses, and we're not connected to the earth, and we're not looking up at the sky. We're not observing the cycles of the moon. We're not aware of certain astrological alignments and configurations that the heavens are. I mean, do you think that all these wonderful patterns in the heavens, are just there and have no effect upon us? We know full moons have effect upon us.
Well, that's true. I mean, they have, that's been documented in, by police, and crime is elevated on full moons. There seems to be sort of an excitement, some kind of an energetic surge that goes on that kind of affects people. Maybe people that are not in the right place within themselves. It has an adverse effect, in that it triggers violence and that sort of stuff. It has an effect on the ocean and the tides. So by the same token, I guess there could be some similar effect given by the stars. I mean, I guess it's not too big of a stretch of the imagination to think so.
Well, when we know certain alignments are in the heavens, they really affect people. I mean, we're coming up to another Uranus square Pluto alignment. And, I mean, look at the protests that are being spawned nationwide based on these recent excessive force, police brutality cases. Again, I don't want to get into the legalities and the logistics necessarily of those cases, but the Uranus square Pluto alignment, which is a very intense evolutionary change. The alignment is about evolutionary change. We are about to hit the sixth one out of 7. They began in 2012. They end in early 2015. And every time those occur, something in the heavens, something happens on the earth. Whether it's right now, this incredible protesting, there have been times of earth, big earth changes. There is a correlation, and the more that you observe this stuff, the more you really see it. And I think it's a logical conclusion. In my understanding, I believe that we're connected. So this Uranus square Pluto that's coming up December 15th, we're already at December 4th, so you're talking 11 days. I mean, we are now in these are big planets moving. They're squaring off. They're conflicting. People are feeling it. It's the most challenging and significant planetary influence in a generation. And I would say, based on all the cycles that closed around 2012, that this is one of the most challenging planetary influences in a very long time. Why are we going through 7 of them? You know what I mean? They are bringing in waves of evolutionary change, and we're feeling it.
What is the advice for people? Because change it's bringing, and we need some change, and change is good. But of course, as human beings, we seem to always be resistant to change, and also with change, it seems like this, heavy duty energy that sometimes isn't the most comfortable feeling for us as humans. So what can we do to make the best of this situation and to sort of mitigate some of the adverse effects that we might be feeling from it?
Well, I think one of the most important things to do in the time of a Uranus square Pluto alignment, I think, is just to let it happen. And I think that if you find yourself feeling, let's say from tonight forward through December 15th, you're feeling discomfort, something's getting kicked up in you, I think one of the best things you can do for yourself is look at it like, what is getting me? What is triggering me? What's making me feel this way? And really begin to look at that, because it's going to make people feel uncomfortable. That's exactly the purpose of a Uranus square Pluto. It's not so that we feel good, because when we feel good, we're content and we're not necessarily going to change. And we are in the astrology of change. So to me, best to figure out, okay, if the focus is evolutionary change and the heavens are, heralding it out onto the earth, and here I am receiving it, what are the social or the political or the economic ramifications? How is it reflecting in my life? And just really look at that, because the more you look at it, the more you will move through it. And just knowing it exists and that it is uncomfortable, maybe that'll relax you a little and just kind of go with it rather than resisting, because it's like it's kicking up all those uncomfortable feelings.
Well, and it is helpful to know what it is, because, if you're just sort of feeling all this discomfort and agitation and frustration and everything, and you don't really know why, it's more difficult.
Exactly.
If you kind of know, look, this is here, it's coming, and it's going to pass, then it's kind of easier to take, because then you at least know there's a light at the end of the tunnel. And then, so what is that light at the end of the tunnel?
Well, it's interesting you should ask that, because and you and I have talked about this, and God knows a lot of people have felt this. Let's just look at in massive social upheaval. I think we kind of understand where that's going. Political, I think we've seen some of the ramifications of that. But if we let's just take the economic upheaval aspect of this, and we look at it. There's a great DVD out there for your audience called Inequality for All, and it's put out by Robert Reich, who used to work in the Clinton administration. The little guy, really brilliant man. Robert Reich, Inequality for All. Amazing. He just lays it out so clear as to what's happened economically, this inequality, and yet everything we're striving for equality, gender equality, sexuality orientation, equality. It seems to be a mantra that's important to us at this time, and yet we find ourselves in a great economic divide, a lot of inequality for people. But the good thing, the news that I've heard for the first time in a handful of years, so the upside of this, the hopeful side for people, is to understand that in the November new moon, November 2014, so, in terms of timing, very recent, the astronumerology of the numbers, the angles, the alignments, the connections in the heavens, all that business, all that math connected to those transits and movements, signaled for the first time that we were getting a prosperity code that was going to begin to be laid down in the November new moon and hit us big time. That code was going to amplify by the winter solstice, which is December 21st. And it was good. Those events were going to lay the groundwork for financial increase for all of 2015, as if we can rebuild for a lot of people to rebuilding financial increase for all of 2015, whether it's new career pathways, new levels of consciousness, seeing money in a whole different way, abundance, prosperity. We actually have this doorway opening by the winter solstice. That's a kind of a pretty easy date to remember. It's right around Christmas, December 21st. And we can actually, as we shift our consciousness, we can kind of ride this new wave coming in, which is the most hopeful thing I've heard in a while in terms of finances.
Oh, that sounds really, really good. I mean, honestly, I know so many people, as I mentioned earlier, people that have never had economic or financial trouble before are really having a hard time. And I've seen, now I know this is probably true in other businesses as well, but in the business that I've been involved in, I've seen, over the last 10, 15 years, a huge change in the way that business was being done. You used to be able to make a really good living doing that kind of work because it was off and on, because just the very nature of production work, you work for a few months and then you don't work for a few months. But you were paid well enough that you were able to ride out those times. And now, not only are there not as many jobs, they're paying like something like maybe anywhere from a third to a fifth as much as what they were paying before. So that now, if you're not constantly working, you are in trouble financially. You're having to file for food stamps or for unemployment or something, whereas before you just kind of were able to drift through those periods. So I'm sure that must be going on in other industries as well. It's just been really strange. And so this is the way the economic system has been going. So with these new changes coming up in the astrology, yes, we're going to have opportunities for, improving finances. But how does that sit with sort of the way our system is set up now, where, the middle class has kind of been cut out, and either you got a lot of money or you got no money?
Well, that's a great question. And this is my take based on all the years of studying prosperity consciousness, abundance, the universal laws, the laws of attraction. How does this really work? And what I see, and this is my take, what I see as we've hit these really amazing portals that are offering new hope, I think the catch is that we have to shift our consciousness. So, in other words, the old economic models, if you will, they seem done. When I refer to Robert Reich's DVD on Inequality for All, he shows very clearly, and if you study the markets, you'll learn how stocks and futures all trend and graph to a certain way, and he shows the steep ascent. And it gets to the pinnacle point in 1929, when the stock market crashes, and then of course it comes down. So if you catch my visual, you're thinking, okay, like a bridge, how you would draw a suspension bridge, and so it kind of goes up, and you hit that point, and then it drops down sharply, and then it kind of goes flat, and then it rises up again. And that's where we are in the graph, in the visual. We've risen so far with this equality, this income inequality, and so that the graphing point is all the way to the top. So what does that tell us? There has to be a crash. Maybe we're living through the crash. Maybe it's not even going to be reflected in the stock market because all, the government incentives to kind of, we won't get into the whole Wall Street thing. But the reason why I say this is because it seems to me that to tap into the consciousness of prosperity and of abundance, we really have to let go of the old model as we knew it, and we have to begin to create from a whole new perspective.
Yeah, I think you may be right. Hold that thought, and we're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back. You're listening to Night Vision Radio. Our guest is Gloria Amendola. Please stay tuned.
everyone. Lorian Fenton here, host of the California MUFON radio show, asking if you'd like special access to exclusive and amazing information about UFOs, the paranormal, and all things unexplained. If you're nodding yes, then join IRN's Insider Club. As an Insider Club member, you'll get an all-access pass to premier Inception Radio Network content for only $4.99 a month. This includes live UFO and paranormal conferences, live streaming UFO skywatches, exclusive IRN radio and TV productions, and of course, paying radio with MJ and Ken Storch. So don't wait any longer. Visit InceptionRadioNetwork.com and click on Member Login to join IRN's Insider Club and get your VIP access today.
Do you have a smartphone? If so, Inception Radio Network is the best app for you. Available on iTunes, Android, Samsung, and most other app stores. Just search Inception Radio Network. With the app you can listen live, check out podcasts of recent and past shows, view our videos, see what shows are coming up, who the guests are, and, via the chat room, send live questions to those guests. You know it makes sense. Check your app store now. Inception Radio Network. I'll see you there.
Hey, IRN listeners, make sure you tune in to Night Vision Radio with René Barnett. René will be exposing the truth one secret at a time. When? Thursdays. Every Thursday, 10:30 p.m. Eastern, 7:30 p.m. Pacific. Where? Right here on IRN.
Hi, I'm John Payne, vocalist for the band Asia FJP and creator of Las Vegas's Raiding the Rock Vault. You know, music provides the very soundtracks of our lives and has the power to impassion and inspire us like nothing else. My friends at returnoftheTroubadour.com understand that as well, and that's why they're sponsoring a contest in search of a very special song, a song that uplifts the heart and inspires the soul. I'm very pleased to be sitting on the panel of distinguished contest judges. And by the way, prizes are quite nice too. So if you're a songwriter, don't delay. Go to returnoftheTroubadour.com for all the contest details and deadlines, and send us your song. It could just be that special one. That's returnoftheTroubadour.com, where they know music can change the world.
You're locked into Inception Radio Network, Superior, Wisconsin.
Thanks for sticking with us. You're listening to Night Vision Radio. I'm your host, René Barnett. We're talking with author and intuitive Gloria Amendola. We've been talking about the economy, its links to the social unrest that we're seeing across our nation and really around the world, and upcoming astrological configurations that may have an effect on that and other things. All this is really a lot to take in, and I know people are feeling such a huge amount of frustration. You know, you were talking a few minutes ago or before the show about the latest protests in New York and in other places about another decision, you know, not to prosecute a police officer for killing an African-American unarmed man. You know, again, we're not going to really opine on that, but just observe that it seems to have something to do with when these protests are not only, I think, about those issues, about the social issues, the racial issues, but also about the frustration of the great disparity among people in our country when it comes to... I was listening to NPR the other day, and I heard someone talking about in Los Angeles, a couple, a family, both parents, with both parents working, they have to make a combined total of at least $28 an hour to afford a 2-bedroom apartment in Los Angeles. That means that people who are working minimum wage, and a lot of people are doing that now, a lot of even professional people are working for minimum wage because that's the jobs that they can find right now. So that means that if you've got, a couple of kids and you're working for minimum wage, you and your partner, you can't afford a 2-bedroom house or a 2-bedroom even apartment. You're going to have to bundle up and move into a studio with a couple of kids or even or a 1-bedroom. I mean, that is ridiculous. It's really, really ridiculous that people can go out every day and work hard and not have enough money to house and feed their families. Okay, something is really screwy about all that.
Well, it is, and I think as we've lost our way as a culture, let's just take America. As we've lost our way as a culture, as we've lost our connection to the earth, whatever plugs us into some level of reality, we've lost our way. And we really do have to come back into balance. It is the only sustainable pathway forward. That has been a consistent message that I've channeled from Mary Magdalene. But, the indigenous people have said that too. It is the only way. And so we're focusing on the economic imbalance. There are other ways to focus on this, the environment, clean water, simple things that we need to survive. Those things have to come back into balance. The feminine part, listening, making decisions through the heart. When has it ever been okay for people who have $800 million to never be satisfied because they have to have $3 and $4 billion? When did we cross that threshold that that's okay and the rest of the people, let them eat cake? It doesn't feel like America.
Hey, we can't afford cake.
There we go. So I think as we make the shift on the upside of this, I think, and I know people are frustrated and I know people are angry, and I think that's a good thing, not because people are frustrated, but if we've gotten to that point, maybe we will finally rise up and make our voices heard. People getting out on the streets and protesting. It is important. It is needed. People are gathering in these demonstrations throughout the United States because they're seeing it on TV, they're seeing it through social media in some form or the other, and they're leaving their apartment, their house, and they're joining in. They're joining in because we have to do this collectively. It is about equality, and it does take us out of our comfort zone, but that's where we find ourselves. It's the only way anything will change.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, see, the chat room is busy. Everybody's talking about, the high cost of everything, particularly food. We did see the gas prices go down a little bit, and that was sort of why everybody was traveling this Thanksgiving and driving places rather than just staying at home. But I noticed, the grocery prices are just unbelievable. I mean, this is to feed your family. We're not talking about, fancy, gourmet stuff. We're talking about just food to feed your family. It's unbelievable. I was especially buying for Thanksgiving and how much everything costs. I was flabbergasted, honestly. It seems like grocery prices have doubled in the last couple of years, but maybe it's just me. Maybe it's only because I've inherited a family in the last couple of years, and I'm buying more groceries. I used to, just cook for myself or, eat fast food or eat out. But now, of course, I have to cook. So it's like, I can't believe, how much it is to buy a chicken, or like someone was saying online, carrots, even vegetables. It's just really, really crazy. And so I'm hoping...
It is crazy. It is crazy. And yet we somehow, in this whole crazy process where people are frustrated and people are angry and people do want alternatives where they can work and they can contribute and they can have a decent to good living, it just seems like we have to shift our awareness into how the new economies, the new avenues of sustainability allow that to unfold. And that's where this shift in consciousness really has to happen, because when it comes to money, it's a trigger for all of us. It's a hot button for all of us. I've met maybe a few people I can count on one hand in my life, and I've met a lot of people who money really isn't a trigger for some deeper issue. For some, the way we feel about money, the way we feel about ourselves, on and so on. It's a complex, hot button issue. But somehow, here we are hitting up against it again. We're going into number 6 of 7 of Uranus square Pluto, and it's right around the holidays. So for people who have been economically challenged, they also have to deal with the barrage of commercials on television, and a lot of people don't have the kind of money that perhaps they used to have put the gifts under the tree.
Oh, absolutely. I can certainly relate to that, and I'm sure a lot of people can.
And so, but I think, on the other hand, it is forcing us to say, well, what is really important? In the channeled book, in the volume 3, Magdala asked some very powerful questions of us. And, what are we really doing with our technologies? She always talks about being in service to your people. That was the mantra that she was raised with. And she's like, are you using your technologies for the good of your people? What are you doing? What is your vision? Maybe we've been also taken by this shift and this change and this upheaval that we still don't know yet. But my God, we got to snap out of it, and we've got to start making our voices heard, because that is the sustainable pathway forward. Look at the price we have paid for not speaking up in the last 5 to 10 years.
Yeah. Oh boy, I tell you. Yeah. It seems like we have been sort of asleep at the wheel, and while things just get progressively worse. But I think it's because people don't know what to do. And also, I think, we've been programmed. Mm-hmm. This is the way it is. And, we've been going about things in the same way for a long time. And it's difficult to change. It's hard to change.
It is difficult, but we're being forced to change.
Well, and I guess that's why, we're having this upheaval, because a lot of times it does take something like that to force people
Most
to change.
times it takes something like that. If people are comfortable, they're not going to make change. They're not going to look at the things that they need to look at. And there's a whole bunch of jobs that can be created through green technologies, and we've got to come up with them, because the UN climate change report that the final installment that came out, I don't know if it was November, it's pretty dire. And so it's not that we can't turn it around, but the creativity is needed to turn it around. The voice is needed to speak out those creative solutions. And I feel that in those creative solutions lie pathways to all kinds of jobs and monies that will unfold.
I think so too. I think that we just have to sort of open ourselves up a little bit to new things, and looking at things, and really not just opening ourselves up, but really opening up our eyes, and really sort of seeing and judging for ourselves what's going on. Don't just accept, whatever your opinion is your opinion. You're entitled to it. Just be open-minded and really look at things. How is your life compared to what it was like 5 years ago or 10 years ago? Are things better for you? Or are they worse for you? How about your neighbor? Are they better for them or worse for them? if you can just sort of open your eyes to different ways of doing things, I think, that's the key. Be open to new information.
I see more and more people opening. They need answers. Things are getting more dramatic. It's not even, and in a deeper way, it's like, even if they've recovered somewhat from the financial debacle of 2008, 2009, or semi-recovered or whatever, people still don't, a lot of people still aren't smiling. A lot of people still aren't happy. There's a deep discomfort and unrest because we have been on the wrong track for a while. And part of that re-examination, part of that looking at the programming. I read this, we've talked about Fred Bell's book, and I read this in it, and it really made sense to me about how the Piscean age, the age of Pisces, the age that ended around, December 21st, 2012, give or take. The Piscean age was really about beliefs, and it was about the beliefs because someone told you what to believe. So it's more about the programming, but it really got entrenched in the last couple thousand years. And as we move to the age of Aquarius, it is about freedom. It is about, we're defining it as a spiritual pilgrimage quest right now, but it really is about the freedom of spirit. So we're going from a belief that somebody has heaped upon us to the freedom of spirit that comes from that Gnostic knowing within you. And that is a huge change. And so, Magdala always says, whether by grace or by chaos, this is where we're going. And it really behooves people to start really opening up because dramatic times call for dramatic solutions, and that's where we are.
Absolutely. I know one of my pet peeves is, when you're having a discussion with someone, whether it be about, oh my goodness, racism or, discrimination of some kind or whatever. And people's argument is, well, that's the way I was raised. That's what I was taught. Well, listen to what you just said. You're saying, I'm thinking that because someone told me to.
Right. So
rise above your raising. Think for yourself. That's all. It seems, perfectly natural, but people think that is plausible. That's how I was raised.
That's not good enough anymore. It just doesn't work. And that's the feminine. That's why we're coming into balance with the feminine, because even for the men listening, women have a masculine side, men have a feminine side. And that feminine side is more about those right brain abilities of intuition and insight and knowing, that Gnostic knowing deep in your bones, knowing, not being stuck in your head, not being stuck in the ego mind, but shifting into the heart, shifting into a whole different vibe. And it's not just about love and compassion. The heart, they say, has its own brain. So it's a heart-based intelligence that has to permeate for us to find that balance. It is the only way we will sustain life here on Earth as we know it right now. It's the only way. We can't just keep digging ourselves, putting our head in the sand anymore. Those days are gone. We must speak out. And I believe that the astrology is even more intense than it was in the 60s, where people did protest massively and social change and upheaval was the norm of the day. We're coming back around. It's kind of like the Saturn return in your chart. We're coming back around to clean up what we missed the first time. And I think, I see a lot of progress being made, but we're not there yet.
No. Gosh, we're getting, close to the end of the show, and I didn't want too much more time to go by. Before we talk again about your new book, and now that is available now, I think.
Yeah.
Grave Distractions.
It is.
Yeah.
So, it went live. Yay.
This is a third in the series of channeled works that you've done on Mary Magdalene. So can you tell us a little bit about just the series itself, but then about this book in particular?
Sure. I never dreamed when, we've always talked about how you really connected with the voices in the novels, in my 2 novels, especially the Tower and the Land, because all those channeled voices at the beginning of each chapter were Mary Magdalene.
That's right.
And you said, hey, there's really something there, and I thought about it, and, Volume 1 was born. And there were so many leftover questions, and there was so much more to say that Volume 2 was born. And before I knew it, I was hearing, just that clairaudience, I was hearing, Volume 3 completes the trilogy, and then we move to Jesus and the immortality teachings. So Magdalene has laid an incredible groundwork in these 3 volumes of deeply esoteric information, of a life's memoir, complete enough to get a far different picture of who she was and who they were and who the people were around them. It is stunning. And even if you don't believe in channeling and you take it as a mythical story, now I don't say that, I channeled it and I believe that, but even for those who may need to look at it that way, open yourselves up to read it, because it will challenge you in a most unusual way. The perspective is, in my opinion, very unique. That's my opinion. She really gives us a personal view, and it has challenged me personally. It has been the culmination of a 14-year journey with her spirit in my life, 14 years of my life, to really bring forth this complete, this story, this information.
Well, I know you touched on quite a few different subjects in the first 2 volumes. I'm assuming that that's going to hold true for the 3rd volume. And you did have certain people submit questions. And of course, my question for this volume had to do with the very thing that we're talking about tonight, which is, finances, and why are so many people struggling, and what's the answer? And to find out what the Magdalene has to say about that, you can pick up the 3rd volume.
Yeah, those questions were answered in a couple of different ways. Very interesting stuff.
Yeah, and if you, I would suggest picking up all 3 if you haven't gotten the first 2. I know we had someone on my Facebook page this week said that she had listened to an archive show with you on as guest, and that she immediately went and bought all 4 of the books of yours.
I love it.
Were currently available. Now she's going to have to go back on and get the next one, because it wasn't even out yet last week. So that's really cool. And the books that are novels, that are fictional works, are actually based in history, based in life, and it's really interesting to sort of go through and sort of figure out, what really happened.
Well, they're very coded. All the words in the book are real, and they're all very coded. There's a real Grail map. There is a Grail quest going on, and there is really a treasure map, if you will, being laid out in the novels, and it will continue through all 5. And I guarantee you it will come to a very shocking conclusion. So even though they're novels, again, they are Grail quests with a treasure map, and the locations are the key to that treasure.
Wow. So that's Mary Magdalene, Revelations from a First Century Avatar, Volume 3.
Yay.
And all the other volumes are available on gravedistractions.com as well. So check them out, as well as other books that Brian's offering there. Good people at Grave Distractions.
Yeah.
Really good people. So we like to support them as well. But in closing, I don't know if you had anything that you wanted to particularly touch on or finish up with.
Well, you were asking me about what the trilogy has meant to me, or what its essence is. And I will say that in these last 14 years, as I've been really stretched beyond my comfort zone and asked in spirit to go to France when there was no money available in the till to do so, and yet somehow find a way, and all the remarkable things that dropped in along the way because you just say yes to your journey. I would like to say in closing that, we don't always know how it's going to happen. We have to trust the universe to work out the details. But as you're going through these very intense and transitional times, just open to the journey. Just open to it. You've got nothing to lose, and you've got everything to gain.
Absolutely. That sounds good. Well, I want to also mention to those, there may be some people out there interested. A few years ago, we put out a book called The Prairie of Zion Dossiers. And what it was a collection of emails, letters, and documents that had been given to us, to my production team, when we were filming the movie Bloodline. And people seemed to be interested in the gentleman, Nicholas Haywood, who purported to be a member of the secret society of the Prairie of Zion. And we had been in communications with him. He'd given us certain information, certain documents and letters, and we compiled them into a booklet that was on sale for a while. We're going to reissue the Prairie of Zion dossiers also with the next couple of years or so of subsequent correspondence, and a few new documents that were given to me personally by Nick Haywood. And so I just wanted to let everyone know that those dossiers will be back on sale shortly. Again, through gravedistractions.com. Brian's going to put those out for me. And there'll be some new information in there, probably, anywhere from, I don't know, maybe 100 additional correspondences and some new documents. So hopefully they'll be on sale shortly on Grave Distractions, also on my new website, renebarnett.com. Music's rolling. That's all we have time for. Gloria Amendola, thanks so much.
Thanks, Renee.
Check out gravedistractions.com for Gloria's new book. It's right there on the front page, hot off the press, just been released. Thanks, everybody, for joining us. We're going to continue with some of this same subject matter next week with my guest, Michael Tellinger. So please stay tuned. Thanks so much. Good night, everybody.
Para mi mamita que me quita mi bombón.